Welcome to Africa Premium News, your front row seat to Africa's power, progress, and truth. Before we dive in, hit subscribe and turn on the bell, because here, you don't just watch the news, you witness history unfold. In 2017, the Central African Republic, a nation rich in gold, diamonds, and uranium, sought help from Russia amid years of conflict and instability. With Western nations largely withdrawn and the United Nations overstretched, CAR's leaders turned to Moscow for military support. That decision marked the beginning of a new and controversial geopolitical relationship. Russia's involvement began under the banner of military assistance. Officially, Russian advisors and trainers, including contractors from the Wagner Group, were deployed to help stabilize the country and train local forces. In practice, Wagner quickly expanded its role far beyond security, embedding itself deeply into the nation's mining industry, especially in gold and diamond extraction. By 2024, Russia's presence in the Central African Republic had transformed. Following the Wagner Group's rebranding into the Africa Corps, Russian influence became institutionalized, controlling not only security operations but also strategic resources. Reports from both Bangui and Moscow now suggest growing tensions over financial obligations. Russia, facing its own economic pressures under Western sanctions, is allegedly demanding that the Central African Republic pay for years of security assistance, not in dollars or euros, but in gold and uranium. Sources familiar with the negotiations indicate that Moscow insists on compensation through direct mineral exports. CAR's economy, heavily dependent on natural resources and limited by a weak national currency, appears trapped. Some reports mention that shipments from the Ndasima gold mine and uranium rights in Bakuma are being used as part of this arrangement. This arrangement represents more than a financial transaction. It is a reflection of a shifting global power dynamic. Russia argues that, due to Western sanctions, dollar-based payments are no longer feasible. Gold, they claim, provides a neutral, tangible, and reliable form of settlement. Similar strategies have been seen in other parts of Africa, from Mali to Sudan, where barter and resource-backed deals are replacing traditional foreign exchange. Western officials, however, see this as part of a broader geopolitical strategy by Moscow to deepen its foothold in Africa. The European Union and the United States have both criticized what they call exploitative arrangements, warning that such agreements threaten sovereignty and long-term development. Yet, with minimal Western engagement on the ground, these warnings carry little immediate impact. From the Central African Republic's perspective, the relationship with Russia remains pragmatic. Many government officials defend Moscow's role, arguing that Russia provided tangible security support when others would not. The perception among some local leaders is that Moscow is not doing anything different from what Western powers once did, leveraging resources for influence, except that Russia's partnership comes with fewer political conditions. Nevertheless, humanitarian organizations warn of growing risks. Reports from regions like Bambari and Kagabandoro point to rising violence and human rights violations linked to private military contractors and local militias. A 2024 United Nations panel of experts report cautioned that foreign security partnerships risk entrenching parallel chains of command and eroding national authority, a statement many believe was directed at Russia's growing presence. Despite the controversy, Moscow maintains that its engagement in CAR is based on mutual respect and shared benefit. Russian officials argue that they are helping African nations regain control over their own resources, bypassing Western financial systems dominated by the dollar. To them, the gold-based system is a form of economic sovereignty, a rejection of Western dominance in global trade and finance. Global data supports the trend. According to the World Gold Council, central banks worldwide, particularly in developing economies, purchased record amounts of gold in 2023 and 2024. Countries like China, India, and Turkey have been reducing dollar reserves in favor of gold holdings. Russia's push for gold payments from CAR, therefore, aligns with its broader strategy of accumulating reserves outside Western-controlled financial networks. The World Bank and IMF have expressed concern that such arrangements could destabilize fragile economies by making them overly dependent on volatile commodity prices. Yet for nations like CAR, These deals are among the few viable options available in a global system that often excludes them from credit and liquidity. China's growing presence in Africa adds another layer of complexity. Through its Belt and Road Initiative, China has already financed and built infrastructure projects across the continent. Russia's resource for security model complements Beijing's economic strategy, giving the two powers overlapping influence zones that collectively challenge Western hegemony in Africa. For the United States, this emerging reality poses a strategic dilemma. The U.S. Africa Command, AFRICOM, has scaled back in several regions, focusing on counterterrorism and training missions rather than economic or infrastructure partnerships. This creates space for Russia and China to offer hard power and real investment alternatives, attractive propositions for African governments struggling with insecurity and underdevelopment. Public opinion across Africa remains divided. Some citizens see Russia's role as a necessary counterbalance to decades of Western dominance. Others view it as a dangerous dependency that could undermine sovereignty in the long run. What's clear is that African nations are no longer merely passive players in global politics. They are active participants, making pragmatic decisions in pursuit of stability and survival. The case of the Central African Republic captures this transformation vividly. It is no longer just about foreign aid or diplomacy. It's about raw geopolitics, minerals, and survival economics. If CAR agrees to pay Russia in gold and uranium, it may set a precedent that reshapes the rules of African foreign policy. Future international deals could bypass conventional currency systems, weakening the influence of Western financial institutions like the IMF and World Bank. For Russia, the arrangement serves dual purposes, financial and strategic. By demanding gold, Moscow strengthens its foreign reserves while bypassing sanctions. By securing uranium, it gains leverage over a critical resource in the global energy market. And by embedding itself in Africa's security architecture, it positions itself as an indispensable ally to governments under threat. For Africa, the implications are both promising and perilous. On one hand, the rise of multipolar partnerships offers alternatives to traditional Western dependence. On the other, the shift toward resource-backed diplomacy risks deepening inequality and exploitation under new terms. Analysts from the Carnegie Moscow Center and the Africa Center for Strategic Studies have observed that Russia's influence in Africa operates through asymmetric dependence, offering immediate security in exchange for long-term resource access. This model, while effective in the short term, could leave African nations with diminished negotiating power in the future. Still, in the eyes of many African leaders, survival comes first. A senior CAR official was quoted saying, "We have no choice but to work with those who help us stand. If that means paying in gold, then we will pay in gold." This moment represents a deeper truth about global politics. Africa is no longer a silent partner. Whether through Russian contracts, Chinese loans, or local initiatives, the continent is asserting its agency in defining the terms of engagement. The question now is whether that agency will lead to sovereignty or new forms of dependence under a different flag. As the standoff between Moscow and Bangui unfolds, the world watches closely. What happens in the Central African Republic may soon echo across the continent, signaling not just a payment dispute, but the dawn of a new economic order. One where gold, uranium, and security replace dollars, loans, and promises as the true currency of power. This is African Premium News, where Africa speaks for itself. Don't miss a story that matters. Click subscribe, ring that bell, and stay ahead of the headlines. Africa's future starts right here.